Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Magic Arena Run. Today we are taking a look at the top 10 alternate formats. This one was kind of inspired by the release of Alchemy and also my horrendous demise in Decathlon. But the idea here is we have so many formats that rotate around between Paper Magic, Magic Online, Magic Arena. But there are actually still formats that have been mentioned but are not exactly supported. They might have a little rule support, but otherwise, you don't exactly see them in you don't exactly see them being played at the local game store. No FNMs based around these guys, but they are interesting for many different reasons. So that said, I did mention that we're basically looking at formats that have not been touched by that have not been officially touched by paper rules or by online or arena, but we are going to exclude those that have received products. So arch enemy based on a product, plane chase based on another specific product. Conspiracy, technically you can play the format with you can play the modified draft format without the conspiracy boosters, but we're kind of leaving that out because that's essentially just multiplayer draft. Commander Legends doesn't exactly quite work without the specific boosters. It's hard to you. I guess you can play with Champions of Kamigawa block because that there's pretty much every rare creature's legendary, but you still run the risk of not getting a legend. Also, it's kind of horrid. So these are not going to be included there. So to start us off, we're gonna take a look at the what might have been. So we all know Modern, we all know Pioneer, but we're going to take a look at the two air quotes prototypes of them. So Overextended, actually the concept came out well before Modern was announced. Unfortunately, very hard to find any sources these days. Even the sources quoted on this forum post have since gone 404. And I'm pretty sure Gavin Verhey was one of the first to be a major proponent for it. I believe there's a Good Morning Magic episode of him narrating the story, but I'm also pretty sure it's a bunch of other pros who originally came up with the concept. Could be a collaborative effort. But the main idea here is that there were pretty much the only Eternal format at the time was with Vintage and Legacy, and they're practically the same with the exception of a few certain cards. But the idea is that a lot of the really old cards are very hard to source, especially the ones on the reserve list. And it's a huge barrier to entry. Like, if I want to play an Eternal format and I have to get myself dual lands, that would have been a really big issue. So we had Overextended. It's basically it derives its name from actual extended, but the idea was it was extended including several other blocks, and that would have made the prototype of Modern. So extended was the other rotating block, but that one has gone away a long time ago. And the difference between that and Modern is that it actually included a few older blocks: Invasion block, Odyssey block, Onslaught block, and the requisite core sets. Now, what actually makes Modern a lot better than this would be that there was originally a clear boundary. Basically, and any card printed in the new border, not the original old border, that was a very clear break. And eventually Modern got the Onslaught fetch lands with Cans of Tarkir, so that became a moot point also. So, but with the official support of Modern, the concept of Overextended pretty much became a footnote in history of Modern. Also in the same vein, we have Frontier. Now, we would have thought that Modern would be the ultimate Eternal format, but no, it looks like even after a few years they wanted another Eternal format, originally because there were many balancing problems with Modern. So our friends in Japan at hararuya.com they came up with Frontier. So this would eventually be supplanted by the official Pioneer. But the difference now is that Frontier was actually narrower compared to Pioneer. It would not have included Return to Ravnica block. It would not have included the Teros block and M1314. This one actually had a clean split. It had the M15 frame, the frame that we're currently using today. That would have been the clear split, and that and the key there. But unfortunately now, actually unfortunately for the format, but kind of fortunate for us, we do have Pioneer. Unfortunately, Pioneer not exactly getting much support either. But we are hoping, fingers crossed, that Pioneer would make its way to Arena one day. But until then, because we have Modern and Pioneer officially supported, Overextended and Frontier have since gone by the wayside. They do kind of live on in these newer formats, so that's why they're down here at number 10. But enough with the new. Let's talk about the really old. So instead of excluding really old cards, how about excluding all the new cards? So we have old school, which is the idea of using just limiting yourself to a certain cards up to a certain point. So over at Eternal Central, they have many variations of the rules, but I think the most common one would be what is called Classic or Alpha to Onslaught block. Basically, all the cards must not use the new frame, and actually some tourneys they would insist that you really use the original cards. But let's ignore that one point there. There is actually another variant of this which is developed by someone else. I actually might have come in contact with one of the developers of the Quantum Leap format. Basically, the way they pushed it was pushing not just using old cards, but also using old rules. It was a modified 6th edition rule set. Basically, the idea that basically it's 6th edition, but including a lot of the quirks of the older ones, like artifacts turn off when they're tapped, and whatnot. When I heard this, I was very much against it because you are creating a huge barrier to newer players being interested. Only the oldest and the most enfranchised would be. That said, the team at Quantum Leap did manage to find their audience. So actually, more props to them. They actually did a pretty good job of pushing the format. My general issue is that with this format is that since no new cards are being added, the format eventually is going to get solved. Though if you use that logic, we're still waiting for the day that chess gets solved. That hasn't quite happened yet. So until then, it looks like there is still quite a good amount of variety between them. So for those who are tired of Wizards breaking Magic over and over again, maybe take a look at Old School and see how Wizards broke Magic before and just stick with that. That would be number 9. Old School and Quantum Leap Magic. So enough about Constructed. Let's take a look at limited formats. Now, a lot of issue about limited formats is that we need to have a lot of product and it gets a bit complicated. So number 8, pretty much the cheapest and simplest one. It does get support. Like if you look at set boosters, you might see the instructions on how to play Minimaster in the back of one of the tokens. But here we go, Minimaster aka Pack Wars. The only thing you need to do is open a booster, add 3 of each basic, not including wastes, and then you just play as usual. There is some flexibility if you want to include losing the game by when you can't draw a card off an empty library, or how do you start? Like you can start with an empty hand, or you can start with the original draw 7 and whatnot. But the general idea is if you need a quick game, one person against another person. In fact, this could be adjusted for multiplayer. But for the most part, it's pretty much a very quick way to get into Magic. It's one of the few ways I've played when we couldn't get a great team for draft. So it's just pretty much Pack Wars at the store. So there you go, number 8, Mini Master. Always a good thing to do. I guess the only thing better is like cracking the packs on YouTube. But heck, you can just crack them and then just play Mini Master afterward. Why not? Now for something a little bit meatier. Number 7, we have Winston Draft. This one was developed by the greatest Dr. Richard Garfield, PhD, aka the creator of Magic. So this was a 2-player draft format, but it's not just about drafting the best deck for yourself, but it's also having knowledge about your opponent's deck in the process. So what would happen is that so two players, normal draft is 3 boosters each, so you get 6 boosters and you shuffle them all up together. Ideally, you'd want to get them in the same set or the same block structure, so there is some information on that. But now the idea is, instead of randomly just drafting cards, what happens is you get this set of 3 piles. They start with 1 card each. The player who drafts first looks at pile number 1. The piles are numbered, so let's just say 1 is on the left, 3 is on the right. You can choose to draft that card. If you draft it, you may play. You take the card that's part of your draft, you replace it with a new card. If you don't draft that pile, you put another card on top of it, but that pile's off limits to you for this point. You'll take a look at pile number 2. You can either draft it, or you can say no, put a new card on top. You go to pile 3. You can either draft that 1 card, or you can say no to that, put a card on top, and you take a card randomly off the top of the main pool. Then the next player gets to decide. So let's say you said no to pile 1, yes to pile 2. The next player would be able to take a look at the top 2 cards. If they still don't like it, they put it down. They put a new card on top of it, so that pile 1's now 3 cards deep. Then they go to pile 2, so forth, so on. So there are many intricacies to this one. You not only know the cards that you're taking, but you also know the cards that you are passing. And your opponent also knows which cards you're passing. So if you passed on pile 1, you're not happy with that card. Because you're not happy with the card, you can try to remember that. If your opponent passes on pile 1, you know that they don't like that card and they don't like the new card that was added on top of it. So when you get to pile 1 for the next time, let's say you're happy with that, you take that pile. Your opponent has knowledge of two of the cards you've taken. Will they be part of your draft deck or not? That remains to be seen. So something to keep in mind. So there is quite an amount of depth with this drafting procedure here. You're not only just drafting your own deck, you're also basically drafting a game plan against your opponent. It is really deep. It is definitely something that Richard Garfield will come up with. And it does take a bit of a long time to play. It's really not for the faint of heart. But there you go. That's number 7, Winston Draft. If you have a ton of time and you feel like you are very knowledgeable about the format, give it a go. Now let's go to draft, but in a different perspective. What if you don't have to play the guessing game of knowing? What if you had perfect information of what everyone takes? So here we have Rotisserie Draft. This is a modified version of Rochester Draft. Officially brought to life by Mark Rosewater, but I believe the anecdote is... Okay, first we start off with the definition of Rochester Draft. Basically what they would do is they would open the... a judge would open the pack, lay all the cards out in the open. You might have seen some videos of this, especially with vintage Rochester Drafts. The first player to draft takes 1 card. Second player to draft takes the second card. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So when you get to the 8th player, he takes the 8th card. Then it becomes his turn again. He takes the 9th. The player who took the 7th takes the 10th. Player who took the 6th takes the 11th, and so forth, until the player who drafted second takes the last card, and he becomes the first player to draft next. Basically, this rotates until as many packs as there are players. So there'd be 24 rounds of this. 8 players, 3 packs. That's perfect information. Now, Rochester Draft actually is still supported. That's why I'm not putting that on this list. Rotisserie Draft is quite fun. and the anecdote was that they usually have Rochester drafts in the invitationals, and one of the pros, Chris Picula, aka Meddling Mage, might have made the remark that, what if we had a Rochester draft with every card from every vintage legal card? And there are some places that actually do the rotisserie draft that way. I believe Shotgun Lotus will actually stream a vintage rotisserie draft. And the interesting thing is, depending on how deep the card pool is, rotisserie draft can support, like a regular Rochester draft supports 8 players. A rotisserie draft can support like 12, 13, 14. So it's like a grand melee draft. Spoilers for what's coming up in the future. And you would see on this picture that employees at Wizards would sometimes have a big rotisserie draft, usually based around the latest block. So here in this picture, you can see it's... actually, I'm seeing some cards from Shards of Alara. Okay, I'm seeing mostly cards from Shards of Alara. This looks like an Alara block rotisserie draft. And a lot of the employees would do this. I'm not so sure how they do this now. How they would do this now with just one set as a block, or technically the extinction of blocks. But I believe between 249 cards, it's possible to support. Yeah, I guess you can support an 8-man pool, maybe 2 8-man pools if you're willing to draft a lot of chaff along the way. But there you go. This is the ultimate in perfect knowledge. You not only have perfect knowledge of your opponent's deck, but you kind of have perfect knowledge of everyone else's deck. But it's not really about the knowledge. It's really about, can you foresee the combo on the fly. Now, a lot of drafts, especially the vintage ones, you would see people telling stories. Okay, I drafted this card and this card because I had this particular plan. And then I drafted this card because I forgot this other card existed and no one had drafted it yet. So it's really a test of your personal knowledge and how cards synergize. This would probably take forever, so definitely a paper-only format. It's better to watch in a sense rather than be the one hosting it. It's probably fun to play though. That's why I put it up here at number 6. Now, enough with Constructed and Limited. Let's go to Commander. Or rather, variants of Commander. Number 5, we have Tiny Leaders. So, what if we take everything about Commander and just cut them in half? Instead of 100 cards, 50 cards. Let's limit all the cards to have a mana value of 3 or less, including Commander. Now, this was originally created by Bramwell Tackaberry. Still ongoing though. I believe its time in the spotlight may have come and gone. Perhaps it's due for a resurgence. I guess the one issue with Tiny Leaders is a lot of newer cards are being printed at the 3 mana range that are getting really powerful. I feel like White has gotten a big boost in this. Also, to mention that a lot of the usual answers are not available. Like, board wipes are usually 4 or... Your best board wipe in Tiny Leaders would be Anger of the Gods, Sweltering Suns, Deafening Clarion. Basically 3 damage. You're not... there's also Toxic Deluge if you go really old. But other than that, the usual ones are not available. And it pretty much puts an onus on how familiar you are with cards of the lesser value. It doesn't make it a bad format, though I guess it's a lack of marketing push that kind of pushed Tiny Leaders aside. But I still wish the team a best, and from my understanding, the group is still relatively growing strong, and they're still relatively quite active. So that's number 5, Tiny Leaders. Number 4, another variant. This one's much newer. It's Oatbreaker. So this one kind of gets a storyline based on the Gatewatch. So it's a 60-card singleton deck. Your commander is a planeswalker, and you also have a signature spell. So you can only, and if I'm not mistaken, you can only cast the signature spell if your planeswalker is on the battlefield. So you could have a combination of a 60 card deck piloted by Gideon and with Gideon and Wrath of God. Okay. Or we can have also the signature spell, if I'm not mistaken, is instant and sorcery only. This this one is developed by the guys at weirdcards.org. They are actually still quite active. In fact, they've started selling pre-con Oatbreaker decks. Not so sure how. Again, this is another format that has come and gone from the spotlight, but it looks like it still has its audience. I wish these guys the best. So there are actually commander variants. It's not just Brawl. Number 4, that would be Oatbreaker. Now, speaking of which, everything I've spoken of so far would require quite a bit of programming to move to Arena. But how about a format that you can actually play in Arena? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gladiator. Basically, it's singleton, but it's limited to Arena. So, 100 card deck, singleton rules. There's no command zone, so no commanders. There's no companion zone, so you're not allowed to have a companion in your sideboard and start the game with that. You can still have a companion in the 99, Lutri included, and no sideboard or outside the game. So no Fae of Wishes wishing for anything. You can still play Fae of Wishes as the. You can still play Fae of Wishes as a 1/4 for 2 mana. This one was developed by Ben Wheeler at one of the fine folks of Loading Ready Run, and actually he's actually quite active in maintaining this format. I believe Loading Ready Run has had a few Gladiator tournaments put on stream, and if anything else, Gladiator is something that you can play right now. No questions added. No complicated rules. As of April 27, 2021, only 5 cards on the ban list. It should be pretty easy to get into. They do have an active Discord, so do check them out if you are interested in something quite different. Maybe this might get support. We're waiting to see. Who knows? Number 3, that would be Gladiator. Now, how about something that's a bit different? How about co-op Magic? Number 2, we have Horde Magic. So, original concept of this was the original concept of this came up by Pete Nudson. This one came around the time of around Innistrad. So there's the concept of zombies are only scary when they come out in hordes. So players use their usual commander decks. Their opponent, but they each start at a lower life total. I believe it's 20 life. And their opponent is on autopilot. The Horde deck is what's interesting. There's usually a curated list, but the typical list is generally 60 zombie tokens. So 60 2/2s, no decade, and a bunch of and a bunch of singleton spells or creatures. So the Horde deck is kind of placed on autopilot. You do get a few turns. You as the humans get a few turns to start before the Horde starts. And when the Horde starts, what they do is flip cards off the top of their deck. If it's a token, set it aside. Keep flipping it up until you flip a non-token card. What you would do is play. I might be getting this wrong. It's either you. I'm gonna look this up really quick. So yeah, so you all the token cards ETB, and then the non-token card gets cast. And the tokens have a special rule. They have haste and must attack each turn they're able. And they attack every player at the same. And they attack every player at the same time. So I believe it's like a shared life total. Actually, it's not 20. So So it's a shared life total. When the survivor's life total becomes 0, I believe it's 20 per player. Yeah. So when it becomes 0, the horde wins. If you if you empty the opponent's deck, actually when you attack the horde, when you attack the horde, you you just exile cards off the top of the horde deck. So when all the zombies are dead and the horde deck has no more cards, you survive the night, and that's how you win horde. Now they've actually made adjustments to horde. Also, they've already come, like they've had squirrel horde, sliver horde, other variations of horde decks. So so as long as you can come up with a very decent deck concept on what would be a great autopilot deck, I believe even the horde deck also plays by. The horde deck will also play by color identity rules, and they're assumed to have infinite mana and will cast at any time. That it's the closest you get to a co-op game, and it's actually very unique. So good job, Pete. And number one, this would be my biggest memory. I remembered this actually in the past. This one is Grand Melee, so this is the equivalent of MMO Magic. Well, not necessarily online. In fact, it's very hard to play this online because you need, aside from the number of players, you also need the number of judges here. So how does this work without bogging the entire game down? Each player has a limited zone of influence, so you can only attack or be attacked. You can only attack or be attacked by the player to your left and to your right. So just that immediate zone of effect. Now, simultaneous turns are done depending on the number of players. I believe it's for every 4 players. There's a turn counter. So there would be two people taking their turn at any time. Then you just pass it around. And the idea is basically, actually no, I say MMO. This is closer to battle royale Magic. Eventually, players get eliminated, and you'll be down to 1. So what's illustrated here on the right is was a very big Grand Melee. It was the world's first Grand Melee. It was held at RadCon. So it was a 40-person game with 13 judges monitoring the turns. And every so number of players, a judge can finally take a break. And it was actually very impressive. Now, so you could have weird things like the usual last man standing, winner chicken dinner, but you can also have other accolades like player with the most kills, player who has not survived the longest. That would be winner, but you could have many possible achievements to go with that. Oh yeah, there's the Soul Survivor. Oh yeah, so basically what happened was what they did at the con was for every player you killed, that was 1 victory point, and that's the number of and your boosters was equal to your victory points. But there's also the Soul Survivor was actually not the winner chicken dinner. It was the Soul Survivor, the one who survived the longest, got a different kind of accolade. I don't know what it was. Let's be honest, for those who have been playing for a long time, the concept of Grand Melee has usually happened at some point or another. I guess the issue was actually finishing the game. Also the theory of simultaneous turns was not quite there yet. But if you want to give it a try, Grand Melee is actually supported in the rules. Well, it's not supported by Wizards per se, but it does have some rule support, so we'll give it that. And that's pretty much it. That's 10 alternative formats that you might want to try someday, I guess. And that's gonna be it for this year. I don't know if I will be doing another year's worth of top 10s. Maybe if there's some demand for this. But that's going to be it for this episode, The Magic Arena Runs Top 10. If you like what you saw, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, turn on notifications and whatnot. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again next time. Take care. God bless. Stay safe wherever you are. Have a great new year, everyone. Take care.